first started noticing Johnny Cash back in, it had to have been the 50s maybe. I was a great fan of his and I known for his music before.
The B-12 fleet was already depleted to 7 or 8 airframes across Russia's entire military, each one irreplaceable. Soviet-era production had ceased decades ago. No modern equivalent existed for their unique mission, flying low over water at 300 to 500 kilometers per hour, using onboard radar and magnetic anomaly detectors to hunt submarines and surface threats. Russian ships struggled to detect Ukrainian naval drones until they closed within a few hundred meters, often too late for effective response. The B-12 provided early warning from altitude, identifying threats hidden in surface wave clutter. Losing 2 of these aircraft didn't just reduce numbers, it created operational gaps across hundreds of kilometers of contested coastline. The Mi-8 helicopter loss added to the tally. Multiple other helicopters, Ka-27 and Ki-29 models, showed signs of damage or hasty relocation in post-strike imagery. MiG-29K fighters remained at the base but appeared repositioned, suggesting nervous dispersal efforts. Infrastructure damage extended beyond aircraft. Hangars displayed extensive blast scarring and partial roof collapse. Large craters, some several meters across, pocked the airfield, indicating high explosive warheads detonating with precision. Fuel depots showed fire damage, disrupting the supply chain feeding sortie operations. Radar installations across the base perimeter lay destroyed or damaged, their twisted antenna arrays visible in high-resolution imagery. The runway that fed a war turned to ash. While not completely destroyed, sections of the main runway and connecting taxiways bore crater damage requiring immediate repair. This disruption severed Kachaz's logistical artery, the constant flow of transport flights carrying ammunition, personnel, and equipment across occupied Crimea ground to a halt. Russian forces began repair operations within hours. Satellite imagery from September 26th onward showed construction equipment filling craters, patching asphalt, clearing debris. But restoration timelines stretched into weeks, then months. Returning to full operational capacity would demand not just physical repairs, but psychological recovery, convincing aircrews to return to a base that had proven lethally vulnerable. Independent OSINT analysts geo-confirmed Tatarigami M.T. Anderson verified the damage through methodical comparison of satellite imagery, geolocated video footage, and Ukrainian Ministry of Defense statements. The assessments converged: significant aircraft losses, extensive infrastructure damage, operational disruption lasting weeks minimum. Russian official statements acknowledged damage but minimized scale, claiming operational capability remained intact. The satellite evidence contradicted this narrative. Where Russia claimed resilience, imagery showed wreckage. Where official channels maintained silence, craters spoke. The asymmetry in cost proved equally devastating. Ukrainian drones costing between $1,000 and $15,000 had destroyed assets worth tens of millions. Radars at $20 million each. B-12 aircraft irreplaceable at any price. Transport planes valued in the millions. Infrastructure repair costs mounting into hundreds of millions. Attrition warfare redefined, not by who could afford to lose more soldiers, but by who adapted faster. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Also share your thoughts in the comment section. 92 years? A voice that's outlived the Nashville machine that rejected it. A man who's buried more friends than most could name. Willie Nelson stands at the edge of his own legend now, still singing songs that were born in the ashes of abandonment. But here's what they don't tell you about legends. They bleed just like everyone else. They wake with ghosts. They count the empty chairs where brothers used to sit. So what keeps a man singing when silence would be easier? When every note reminds him of someone who's gone? Early years, the architecture of loneliness, Abbott, Texas. April 29, 1933. The year the country collapsed under its own weight, and a boy was born into a family already falling apart. Willie Hugh Nelson entered a world that didn't wait for him. His mother walked away. No explanation, no return address. His father remarried and vanished into his own survival. Before Willie could speak full sentences, he and his sister Bobby were handed to their grandparents like packages nobody else wanted to deliver. His grandfather was a blacksmith with calloused hands and a gentle heart. He gave Willie his first guitar when the boy turned 6. 6 months later, pneumonia took him. The man who taught Willie that wood and strings could speak when voices failed. Gone before the lessons were finished. Bobby played piano. Willie sang. They filled the Methodist church with gospel harmonies every Sunday, not because it calmed them, but because music was the only language that didn't abandon them back. In his memoir, Willie wrote something that cuts deeper than any lyric he ever penned. Our separation from mother and daddy seemed worse than a death, because they were still out there in the world, but they weren't with me and Bobby like they were supposed to be. Think about that. Your parents alive somewhere, breathing, walking, choosing, but not choosing you. By age 7, Willie wasn't playing childhood games. He was picking cotton with fingers too small for the work. By 9, he was performing in local bars, standing on crates to reach the microphone. By 10, he'd joined a polka band, a gospel-raised kid playing dance hall music because silence was more terrifying than sin. Every stage he stood on was less about applause and more about proof. Proof that someone heard him. Proof that he existed beyond the echo of doors that never reopened. Some children are born into love. Willie Nelson was born into a question that would follow him for 92 years. Why does everyone leave? The answer, he would learn, wasn't in the staying. It was in the song. Struggle and Rejection, the invisible songwriter. The Texas sun doesn't forgive. Neither did poverty. By 14, Willie Nelson had already lived more jobs than most men accumulate in a lifetime. Tree trimmer, phone operator, encyclopedia salesman knocking on doors of families who couldn't afford dinner, let alone books. He scrubbed dishes in diners. He patched leather in saddle shops. He spun records at tiny radio stations where the only audience was dust and static. There was a night, no money, no ride, nowhere to go, when he tried to reach his mother in Oregon. Nobody stopped to help. So he curled up in a roadside ditch, rain soaking through his clothes, guitar wrapped in his arms like a child he was trying to protect. A truck driver found him at dawn, gave him $10 in a ride, just enough to keep moving. By 1960, he'd made it to Nashville with a publishing deal and a dream that felt more like desperation. He joined Ray Price's band as a bassist. He wrote songs late into the night, melodies that ached with truth. Family Bible, a hymn born from his grandmother's voice. He sold it for $100 to buy groceries. It became a radio staple. His name wasn't on it. Crazy. A haunting descent into heartbreak. Patsy Cline made it eternal. The world knew every word. They didn't know who wrote them. Funny how time slips away. Billy Walker, Pretty Paper, Roy Orbison, Hello Walls, Farron Young's first #1. Willie Nelson was building the soundtrack of a generation, one ghost credit at a time. But when he tried to sing his own words, Nashville said no. His voice was too rough, too raw, too real. They wanted rhinestones and pompadours. Willie brought braids, gentle eyes, and a face that wore every scar. They didn't hear poetry. They heard unsellable. In his 20s, broke and drowning in rejection, he walked out into the middle of a busy street one night and lay down. Not to make a point, just to see if anyone would notice. Cars swerved around him. Nobody stopped. Later, he wrote, "Was I relieved? Was I disappointed? Can't say for sure. All I know is I got up, walked back to the bar, and had another drink." That's not the story of a man giving up. That's the story of a man learning that survival sometimes looks like standing back up for no reason except refusal. While other artists climbed charts on his words, Willie played backup in honky-tonks and taught Sunday school to pay rent. He was being erased one credit at a time. The songwriter everyone heard. The man nobody saw. But invisibility, Willie would learn, can be its own kind of fuel. Collapse and rebirth. Fire, betrayal, and Texas. December 23, 1969. Ridgetop, Tennessee. Willie Nelson came home from a Christmas party to find his house burning. Most men would have called the fire department and waited. Willie ran inside, not for photo albums, not for family heirlooms. He grabbed his guitar, trigger, and a pound of marijuana he didn't want the firemen to find. Everything else turned to smoke. Demo tapes, furniture, the last remnants of a Nashville dream that had never fully caught fire anyway. Sometimes the universe doesn't wait for you to choose. It just burns the bridges and dares you to walk forward. Around the same time, his second wife, Shirley Colley, opened a piece of mail by mistake. A hospital bill for the delivery of a baby girl, born to Mrs. Connie Nelson. Willie tried to soften it, tried to explain, but the ink didn't lie. Connie's my girlfriend. Paula's our daughter. The marriage ended. Not with shouting, but with the kind of silence that echoes louder than any argument. Willie packed what was left and drove back to Texas. At 39, he had no house, no marriage, no record label that believed in him. RCA had dropped him. Critics had written him off. But Austin wasn't Nashville. Austin didn't care if you fit the mold. It cared if you told the truth. In 1973, he released Shotgun Willie. Raw, unapologetic, defiant. It didn't beg for radio play, it just existed. Then came Phases and Stages. Then in 1975, Red-Headed Stranger, a concept album so sparse, so stripped down, that the label called it unmarketable. It went multi-platinum. That same year, he joined Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Paul Glazer for Wanted, The Outlaws, the first country album to ever go platinum. Nashville had told him to sit down and be quiet. Texas told him to stand up and scream. The Outlaw wasn't chasing fame anymore. He'd become something bigger. A voice for every misfit who'd been told they didn't belong. From the ashes of rejection, a new kind of legend rose. Not polished, not perfect, just real. And for the first time in his life, the world finally shut up and listened. Willie Nelson has been married 4 times. He'll tell you himself. There's no such thing as ex-wives, only additional ones. But behind the humor lives a trail of women who loved a man who couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop chasing, couldn't stop breaking the promises he meant to keep. Martha Matthews was 16 when they married. Willie was 19. They had 3 children, Lana, Susie, and Billy. The marriage was volatile, tangled in poverty and pride. There were fights, there were scars. By 1962, it was over. Shirley Colley was a rockabilly singer. She toured with Willie, harmonized with him, believed in him when Nashville didn't. They married in 1963. Then came that envelope, that bill, that name. The truth didn't arrive with an apology. It arrived with a receipt for someone else's baby. Shirley left. The marriage dissolved in 1971. She died in 2010, carrying the memory of a love that ended in ink and numbers. Willie married Connie the same year he divorced Shirley. They had 2 daughters together. For 17 years they tried, but Willie was still Willie. Always on the road, always somewhere else, always chasing something just beyond reach. By 1988, that marriage ended too. Then came Annie D'Angelo. They met on the set of a TV movie in 1986. Married in 1991. 2 sons, Lucas and Micah, both musicians now carrying forward the family sound. Willie calls her the woman unlike any other. The one who stayed. The one who didn't flinch when the storms came. But love for Willie has always come with a cost. His eldest son, Billy, grew up in his father's long shadow. Struggled with depression, battled alcoholism, got arrested for DUIs. Tried to find his own voice in a world that kept comparing him to a legend he could never become. Christmas Day, 1991. Willie got the call. Billy was gone. 33 years old. Found in his cabin. Ruled a suicide. Willie would later say, "I've never experienced anything so devastating in my life." There are no songs for that kind of silence. No melody for a father's guilt. No chord progression that brings back a son. Willie stopped performing on Christmas for years after. When he returned, something in his voice had changed. A pause where there used to be breath. A wait where there used to be ease. Fans say they can still hear it. The ghost note. The missing harmony. Love, Willie learned, doesn't always stay. But its absence? That never leaves. Triumph and crisis. The IRS, the debt, and the reckoning. By the dawn of the 1990s, Willie Nelson had done the impossible. Redefined country music. Built an empire from rebellion, become an icon, and then the government came for everything. The IRS claimed he owed $16.7 million in back taxes. Years of bad advice from accountants. Investments in tax shelters that collapsed. Trust placed in the wrong hands. November 9th, 1990. Federal agents raided his ranch. They seized his recording studio, his furniture, his memories. They even took Trigger. To Willie, it wasn't about things, it was about identity. His life's work boxed up and carried out the door like evidence at a crime scene. Most men would have declared bankruptcy, hidden behind lawyers, disappeared. Willie did what he'd always done when the world knocked him down. He made music. In 1991, he recorded the IRS tapes, Who Will Buy My Memories? A stripped-down album. No production, no polish. Just a man singing his story, offering up his past to buy back his future. He sold it directly to the public through television commercials. No label, no middleman, just Willie in America. And something remarkable happened. People listened. Not out of pity, out of love. They remembered the songs he'd given them in their darkest nights. Now they gave back. Dollar by dollar, album by album, Willie chipped away at the mountain. By 1993, he'd negotiated a settlement. Most of the debt was paid. He got his guitar back. He got his dignity back. But the cost? You don't lose $16 million and walk away unscathed. For most artists, the IRS tapes would be a footnote of embarrassment. For Willie, they became another chapter in a story that refused to end. A man brought to his knees who found a microphone and stood back up. Because legends don't quit. They just change the tune. Late years. The last highwayman time steals and whispers. February 2020. Paul English, Willie's drummer, bodyguard brother, passed away at 87. Paul wasn't just keeping time. He was keeping Willie alive. Through bar fights and bad deals, through empty pockets and full stages, Paul was there. Boot holding a pistol. Eyes daring anyone to cross the line. When Paul's beat stopped, something in Willie's rhythm fell silent too. Then, in 2022, his sister Bobby died. 91 years old. The girl who'd survived abandonment beside him, who played piano while he sang gospel, who knew every scar from before the world ever heard his name. She wasn't just his sister, she was his first duet, his memory keeper, his witness. When she left, Willie didn't just lose family. He lost the bridge to everything he used to be. He still plays her favorite songs, but he plays them differently now. Slower, as if listening for a voice in the echo. And then came September 2024. Chris Christopherson, the last highwayman, 88 years old. They were poets who refused to be polished, outlaws who sang about freedom because they'd tasted chains. Together, Johnny, Waylon, Chris, and Willie, they built a fire that still burns. Now Willie stands alone. The final voice, the last man singing. He said of Chris, "He left a lot of fantastic songs around for the rest of us to sing. I hated to lose him. But it wasn't about the songs. It was about losing the last voice that truly understood his. And his own body? It's been waging war too. Decades of smoking, emphysema, collapsed lung. In 2015, stem cell surgery to repair tissue. In 2022, a brutal case of COVID that nearly took him. By 2025, at 92, he finally quit smoking marijuana, not by choice. His lungs simply couldn't take it anymore. He turned to edibles, kept creating, released his 76th album, Last Leaf on the Tree. He canceled some shows, took time to rest, but he always came back. Because when you've spent 92 years learning how to stand back up, sitting down feels like dying. He lives quietly now on his ranch in Spicewood, Texas, surrounded by family. Lucas and Micah, his sons, carry the music forward. The crowds still come. The songs still echo. But behind the calm smile stands a man walking through a graveyard of memories. A father without his son. A brother without his sister. A band leader without his beat. A poet without his muse. They say time heals. But some wounds don't close. They just learn how to sing. And Willie? He still does. Reflection. Some hearts never stop. 92 years, 33 albums since the year 2000 alone, 4 wives, 7 children, countless stages, uncountable scars. Willie Nelson didn't just survive the music industry, he rewrote its rules. Didn't just endure heartbreak, he turned it into poetry. Didn't just outlive his losses, he transformed them into legacy. He once said, "As long as I got my guitar, I'm fine." And maybe that's the truth legends won't tell you. It's not about never falling. It's about finding the one thing, the one sound, the one purpose that makes standing back up worth it. Willie has walked roads most couldn't imagine, buried people most couldn't bear to lose, faced storms most wouldn't survive. And yet he's still here, still singing, still showing the world what resilience looks like when it refuses to be quiet. His guitar is held together with tape and prayers, so is he. Some hearts are born with cracks too wide for childhood to fill. Some voices carry ghosts in every note. But some hearts never stop singing, they just change the tune.